But one thing that has occurred to me in thinking about the idea of teaching critical thinking is that although for us being critical in the way that we speak or in the way that we write is very, very natural, because this is sort of our job. We do this when we do our research. We write papers. We try to give arguments and evidence. We try to be analytical. We try to be really clear and cogent in our reasoning. But for a lot of the students, especially freshman students, who are the students that are going to be in these EP1 seminars, although they surely know how to reason, they get around in the world. They get on the bus, they pay, they get off at their stop. They're not sort of without the power of reason. The idea of the kind of critical thinking that we're asking them to do, I think, is in some ways extremely foreign to them. It's something they've never been asked to do this kind of thing in an academic or scholarly or school environment before. What do I mean by an argument? I guess I mean it's something in a very broad sense, like a structure that has evidence or reasons or premises or something that lends support to some conclusion. An argument is different from just stating your opinion. An argument is different from beating someone over the head with a baseball bat and then telling them what to think. An argument has this one part, the evidence reasons part, and then it has this other part, the thing that is being argued for, the thing that is supposedly being supported. And there's a bunch of different things a student has to, hopefully, ideally, learn about this. One is how to understand arguments that other people are giving, to see arguments in the texts that we're asking them to read, to see arguments that we are giving about the text that we're asking them to read, to see arguments that we're giving that may have nothing to do with any text that we're asking them to look at. I think we want to have the students learn to give arguments, both in speech and in writing, as opposed to simply giving their, say, reaction to the text. We want them to be arguing about the text. We want them to be taking a position and trying to defend it, or taking a position and trying to attack it, and to do so with evidence, reasons, and that kind of thing. So that's a sort of second way in which arguments are relevant here, learning how to give them, and finally learning how to criticize them. I think we want to have the students learn to give arguments, both in speech and in writing, as opposed to simply giving their, say, reaction to the text. We want them to be arguing about the text. We want them to be taking a position and trying to defend it, or taking a position and trying to attack it, and to do so with evidence, reasons, and that kind of thing. So that's a sort of second way in which arguments are relevant here, learning how to give them, and finally learning how to criticize them, learning how to look at an argument that someone else has given and explain what's wrong with it. When I first started teaching, I would start the first day and I'd say, all right, this is a philosophy class. We're going to deal with lots of arguments. Here's what an argument is. An argument is a thing that has premises and a conclusion. The premises support the conclusion. Here's a bunch of definitions. Here's what a valid argument is. Here's what a sound argument is. Here's what a counterexample is. And I would do a lot of theory of critical thinking at the beginning of the class. And what I found was that, maybe because of the way I did it or because I did it too quickly, but I found that the students paid attention, took the notes, but absorbed nothing of what I was wanting them to absorb, which was, I think, something much more like a habit or a practice of critical thinking. So the way I've been doing it now, and this is, I think, has been more successful, but I think I still wonder how this is to be done, and I don't really know how to get it done. But what I do now is I just start in with the philosophical material in the course, and halfway through the semester I say, what have we been doing? I've been writing up on the board, these claims and then saying, therefore, another claim. What was I doing when I said this, therefore, this? And they say, well, you're giving an argument, right? I said, yes, that's what an argument is. And by then, they've been doing it too. They've had some practice with it. And I think then introducing some of the theory of critical thinking has been easier, because they do need to have that practice in doing this kind of stuff.
But I think when an argument in an actual text is bad, it's bad for such complicated reasons that it might be kind of tough to sort out.
Yeah.
But
I have a bad relationship with Plato, so I like to use the Plato portion of the course, a whole bunch of lessons of bad arguments, because there's a few bad arguments in there. But yeah, I think that's a cool idea, to get them to see. Well, this is. Because I think this, again, this is the sort of the notion of the foreignness. It's like some people think, well, an argument is just any any time I talk in favor of some claim. It's like, well, no, there's good and bad arguments that really exist, and you can see that some are bad. I can't remember what dialogue of Plato. Maybe the Euthyphro, I think, was suggested. Have two students read it with the two parts. Read it and just no improvisation. Just read it back and forth to one another, just to get the feel for how critical argument works. And I think this it sounds a little bit silly, but there is something to the idea that you sort of learn by imitation in some of these cases, and it's a good way to get people to understand what's going on in Euthyphro as well. Something that I've done is have students just break into groups and come up with an argument. And this is something that can be part of the writing component because they're writing. Have them write, have someone write for the group, and so this is satisfying your 20%. But also it's about come up with an argument for this claim. You can give them a text and say, all right, figure out what the argument is in here. That's something that I think sometimes we read a text and it's sort of obvious what the argument is, but the students often have no idea how to extract an argument from a text. And you can make them do it in a group, and you can make each of the groups present. And I wouldn't shy away from saying, well, this looks good, this looks bad, and that's the feedback component. A lot of people have been talking about doing, for their speaking component of the course, is having students give presentations at some point in the course, either presentations on a reading that they did for that day throughout the course of the semester, or presentations on their term paper idea. These are both cases where, just by phrasing the assignment in the right way, we can add a critical thinking component. Make the presentation a presentation about what the argument was in this text. Make the presentation a presentation where the student has to give an argument for some claim. And that way, we're training them to speak, and at the same time, we're going to train them in critical thinking. What I've done in classes is had the big group debate where it's half and half, and they get together and they talk for like 10 minutes beforehand, figure out what they think the best arguments for their position is, and then someone stands up, sort of gives an opening statement, and then it's kind of a orderly free-for-all with me calling on people from the different groups. But that can be a little bit of an orderly free-for-all, and it doesn't involve everyone necessarily. So if you're thinking about the speaking component of the course and you want to get everyone involved, that might not necessarily involve everyone. A couple people, and this actually I think is what I might try when I do this, suggested a more structured debate format where you have two people and two people. They go home, they do research for a week or for 2 weeks, they come back, and then it's opening statement, opening statement. I guess it's different. You could do it with a lot of different structures, right? Opening statement, rebuttal, opening statement, rebuttal, opening statement, rebuttal again. There could be a question period in there, opening statement, questions, then rebuttal. You can then open up to the class, and the class can ask questions of the two groups. And this is the kind of assignment where I think you could say, this is where I'm teaching speaking here. They're going to get graded on their debate, or it could be ungraded or graded. But I think this is, again, an excellent opportunity to encourage critical thinking. It's speaking, but it's also critical speaking because it's in this debate format.